Welcome back, Facebook. I'm Jill Malandrino with the Voice of America for NASDAQ's Facebook Live. And today we are hosting throughout the day leaders from African and U.S. businesses. Joining me is Tony Elumelu. He is the keynote speaker of the Africa Investor Summit. Tony, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Now that the continent is moving away from commodity dependency, what sectors do you see growth in?
Thanks so much for this opportunity. Africa has been highly dependent on commodities, and now that the commodity price is not doing well, we need to diversify our economies. We need to begin to address those complex issues that oftentimes we attend to with simple solutions. And what are these complex issues? Infrastructure. Infrastructure is key for us to eradicate poverty in Africa, for us to address issues of unemployment, youth unemployment, for us to actually transform the economy of South Africa. We must fix the issue of infrastructure, starting with power, transportation. Power access to electricity in Africa is so poor. Over 600 million Africans don't have access to electricity. We must fix this, especially in the 21st century, if we're serious about becoming a serious player in the global economy.
Right. Well, it's also very expensive to getting power to local homes, but to fix the employment situation, you have to also invest and create jobs in the relevant sectors. For example, agribusiness, mobile banking. Do you agree with that? I mean, what other sectors are you looking at outside of power and infrastructure? Because we know that needs to exist in order to achieve growth.
We have to. There are many sectors and many opportunities we have in Africa, but to me, the most critical sectors that we need to address the issue of power. Access to electricity must improve because to a large extent, everything is dependent on that. Africa cannot truly transform if we do not fix the issue of electricity. So electricity to me is extremely important. Number one, number two, and number three. Then beyond that, we can talk about transportation. Transportation is very important because we need to move goods from point A to point B. People talk about intra-Africa trade being very poor and low. Why will it not be that way when our transportation infrastructure is not wired to support intra-Africa trade? It's wired to support export of raw materials. So transportation is another critical sector. And of course, agriculture, which today is the mainstay of our economy, we need to boost it. But remember, to boost agriculture by way of making sure that farm produce does not perish overnight, you need to fix electricity.
How do you do that?
We need massive investment in the electricity sector. We also need regulatory improvement. We need our government to create the right regulatory environment that will attract private sector investment to that space. We need the global capital, private capital to seek destination in Africa. The truth is, I speak as an investor in the power sector in Africa. I have seen significant improvement in the power sector in Africa. Our governments are beginning to liberalize. They are beginning to encourage. Today, our group generates about 18% of Nigeria's total power consumption. And we're able to do this because the government of Nigeria decided to privatize the power sector. So a lot is happening, but global private capital is not yet aware of what's happening. That's why this kind of communication, this kind of medium is good to help create and talk about the opportunities that we have in Africa in this space. So we need massive investment in power sector. And President Obama's U.S. Power Africa initiative is a welcome development. The Electrify Africa Act that the U.S. government Senate passed, House has passed, is a welcome development. The formation of the African Energy Leaders Group Forum that brings us, private sector leaders in Africa, and the political leaders together to commonly address the problems that affect the energy sector is another positive development. So I think a combination of all of this will actually help to fix power in Africa.
Well, it's interesting.
And when we fix power in Africa, we deal with the issue of the industrialization of Africa.
Move on to the other sectors. But you brought an interesting point that in Nigeria, some of it's improving because of the privatization. I think from the Western looking in, that corruption and transparency has always been one of the obstacles. And I think that's important too, to fixing the economy, is to get a little bit of the government out of it a bit and privatize a bit more.
Important.
That's why U.S. and European investors might shy away a bit because they need that transparency.
I agree. But if you don't experience, if you don't come, if you don't invest in Africa, how do you know that things are actually changing?
Right.
The truth is the characterization of opportunities in Africa is always tainted and at times presented in a manner that does not encourage foreign investment. I speak as an African business leader that invests not just in Nigeria, but in 19 other African countries. One of our businesses, United Bank for Africa, where I sit as the group chairman, operates in 19 African countries. We have farming investment, agricultural investment in Tanzania, Matanga Farm in Tanzania. We have commodity exchange in Rwanda. So I would say about 21 countries where we operate in Africa. I speak firsthand as someone who has been doing business in Africa. And I want to say a few things. One, there's nowhere that you get the kind of return on investments that is higher than what you get in Africa today. Two, that today's macroeconomic environment in Africa and government's commitment to improving the ease of doing business on the continent is actually better than it has ever been. And thirdly, that democracy and institutions of governance are actually maturing in Africa. And with that, it pushes corruption down. As you know, the economy opens up, as governance, institutions of governance improves, then there's not much room for corruption again.
Right. Well, that's why having summits and conferences such as this helps to spread that message
it's very, very
and
important.
get the exposure to get U.S. business leaders onto the continent.
It's very, very important. On Wednesday, we have a forum of 200 U.S. And African business leaders in the same room with President Obama, with African political leaders, talking about how to encourage investments between America and Africa. That is welcome. That is what we need. This is a kind of forum that will help to present the correct narrative on Africa. That's what we need.
All right. Well, we wish you further success. Thank you very much for joining us at the NASDAQ today.
Thank you very much.
For the Voice of America and for NASDAQ's Facebook Live, I'm Jill Malandrino.
Doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.